After 20 years. The incident in the story takes place on a dark, windy New York City business avenue, where a policeman discovers a man standing in a dark doorway. The policeman on the beat moved up the avenue impressively. The time was barely 10 o'clock at night, but the chilly gusts of wind with a taste of rain in them had left the streets empty and deserted. When about midway of a certain block, the policeman suddenly slowed his walk. A man was leaning in the doorway of a darkened hardware store with an unlighted cigar in his mouth. As the policeman walked up to him, the man explained quickly that he was waiting there for a friend. It was an appointment that had been made 20 years ago. The man said that about that long ago, there used to be a restaurant there. It had been called Big Joe Brady's Restaurant. The policeman confirmed that the restaurant had been there till 5 years ago, when it had been torn down. The man in the doorway struck a match and lit a cigar. The light showed a pale, square-jawed face with keen eyes and a little white scar near his right eyebrow. His scarf pin was a huge diamond, oddly set. The man said that he had dined at Big Joe Brady's restaurant exactly 20 years ago with Jimmy Wells, his best chum. He had been 18 and Jimmy was then 20. He was to start for the West to make his fortune, while one couldn't have dragged Jimmy out of New York. They had agreed that night that they would meet there again, exactly 20 years from that date and time, no matter what their conditions might be, or from what distance they might have to come. The policeman found the incident quite interesting and asked him if he had heard from his friend since he had left. The man replied that they had indeed corresponded for a time, but after a year or two had lost track of each other. But he was sure that Jimmy would meet him there if he was alive, for he had always been the truest, staunchest old chap in the world. The waiting man pulled out a handsome watch, the lids of it set with small diamonds. He said that he had done pretty well for himself in the West, and he hoped that Jimmy had done half as well as him. There was then a fine, cold drizzle falling, and the wind had risen into a steady blow. And in the door of the hardware store, the man who had come 1,000 miles to fill an appointment with the friend of his youth smoked his cigar and waited. After 20 minutes, a tall man in a long overcoat walked up to him.
"Is that you, Bob?"
he asked doubtfully.
"Is that you, Jimmy Wells?"
cried the man in the door.
"Bless my heart!"
exclaimed the new arrival.
"It's Bob! Well. How has the West treated you, old man?"
Come on, we'll go around to a place I know of and have a good long talk about old times.
The two men walked up the street, arm in arm. In the glare of the electric lights, the man from the West turned to gaze upon the other's face.
"You're not Jimmy Wells,"
he snapped.
"You've been under arrest for 10 minutes, Silky Bob. Now, before we go to the station, here's a note I was asked to hand you. It's from Patrolman Wells."
Bob trembled a little while reading the note, which said,
"Bob, I was at the appointed place on time. When you struck the match to light your cigar, I saw it was the face of the man wanted in Chicago. Somehow I couldn't do it myself, so I went around and got a plainclothes man to do the job. Jimmy."
Subscribe now and press the bell icon. Never miss an update.